Hi, and welcome to Speaker Talk Speakers Podcast, sharing to speakers, authors, and entrepreneurs. I'm Steve Sapato, and today I have the great pleasure of having with me Cathy Fyock. And Cathy is a business book strategist who works with professionals and thought leaders who want to write a book as a business growth strategy. Wow, what a cool thing to be able to say. Hi, Cathy, how are you?
I'm doing great.
And Cathy's very gracious. I think I've messed this thing up about 1,400 times to try and get her on the podcast, and she's always stuck with me, so that's really nice. And of course, we were just talking about all the things that are happening today in the world and why it's important to stay focused on where you want to go and not let all the rest of the stuff distract, right, Cathy?
That's right. This is a perfect opportunity, I think, to really be envisioning where you want to be on the other side of this. And I think to have a book or a new book under your belt would be the perfect way to come out of this COVID crisis.
Now, when you think about it, most people have just sat around and said, woe's me, most people. The movers and the shakers and the people who are going to come out the other end. I mean, we heard back in 2008, we heard in the crash of 1929 or whatever it was, and we heard a couple times in between that. As you get to be my age, we've been through a couple things.
Yes.
But it's always about the salespeople who keep on keeping on, who come out the real winners when this thing is all over. It's the people who go, oh, woe is me, and who sit back. That fearfulness, that holding back is what keeps people from greater success, right?
Yeah. So it's about, if you have some intellectual property and you've been thinking for a long time, you need to write your book or your next book. This is the perfect time to do it.
Yeah, now. And that's what Cathy, obviously you can see her books. And are these just your books behind her, or are they other books?
They're primarily my books or my author's books. I've helped now over 170 professionals become published authors. So it's pretty cool when I get to help somebody step into thought leadership, either for the first time or for the second or third or whatever.
Or the 10th or the 12th. Yeah. I've got 4 books under my belt, and every time I finish one, I'm like, wow, that wasn't nearly as painful as I thought it was going to be. I think that's what a lot of people think when they sit down to write, don't they, Cathy? What's the big thing that keeps them from writing their book?
Well, I think there's several things that keep people. One is time, which many of us have a little more time now. Part of it is just time management and really being very focused about your writing time. One of the things I tell my authors to do all the time is to put it on your calendar and not on your to-do list.
Oh, that's a good idea. But that's right, because my to-do list, I've got a big whiteboard here, and I put a to-do list up there. But my calendar always takes preference, so it'll beep at me or it'll remind me, and nothing up on my to-do list does that. So, yeah, I tend to forget that stuff's even there sometimes, and 2 or 3 days goes by, and then you're suddenly like, boy, I need to do that, right?
Exactly, because I've always said to my clients that your book, while it's always really important, will never be urgent. And so by putting it on your calendar, it creates that sense of urgency. And if you have an appointment, you stick with that appointment. And if you need to cancel that appointment, you reschedule that appointment.
That's right. And that's right. When you say the book's never urgent, I never thought of it like that, but that's exactly right. That's always one of the first things that you put off to the side, isn't it? You say, I can always write that later. And that's what kills a lot of us. So you're right. Now that we have some extra time, and I don't know that you have extra time, but you have to start carving it out. Well, the reason I did this is we watch a comedian that says, you got to focus. He's talking to his kids. You got to focus. You got to focus. And that really is the key to creating your success, is finding what you really want. And I tell people all the time, Cathy, if you don't have your goals written down and in front of you, you're probably not going to achieve most of them. People argue with me about that. They go, I got my goals in my head. I can do this. I know what I want to do. And you and I know that that's a struggle, right?
That's right. I like to have them written out right in front of me and then delineated. What do I need to do first? What do I need to do second? And sometimes that's what's holding authors back from getting their book written, is they don't have that plan of action. So not only is it important to have time blocked out for your book, but it's also important to have that strategic plan so that you're writing the right book, because not every book will help advance your career or advance your platform or advance your ministry. It's the book that is integrated with who you are and what your key message is all about. I tell my authors that books are magical and they will take you where you want to go. So be careful what you write.
Well, you
So,
know,
yeah,
when you
so
said that,
even if you may have some area of expertise that you really know quite well, but you're not interested in doing that anymore. So for heaven's sakes, don't write the book about that.
you know, that's real key. As a speaker, one of the things I teach my speakers is that they have to have a signature talk. And like you say, the signature talk should be the expertise that you're going to be speaking on. A lot of people have great expertise here. I might be a great electrician, and my passion for electrician work is really huge, but that's not what I'm going to talk about. So you have to find that particular area. And so in writing your book, I might have great knowledge on, like I got my wife's puzzle sitting here. I might have great knowledge on teaching people how to put together a puzzle, you know, and I'm sure people would like tips on that. But the truth is that's not what I want to write about. That's not what I want to be known for. And now, what do you say to the people who say, you know, I want to become a bestseller and I want to make $100,000 off my book?
Well, after I sort of stifle a laugh, no, I mean, we all wanted our books to do well, but I think the realistic author knows that a book in and of itself, you might get lucky and you might get a bestseller, but I don't think that's where most of the money is in being published. I think that the money is in by establishing your visibility, credibility, you're establishing your thought leadership, you're putting a stake in the ground and saying, this is what I'm all about. By doing all of those things, you are able to charge more money. You're able to, raise those fees. You're able to reach a broader audience.
Now,
And most all of my authors are speakers, consultants, coaches. Yeah,
yeah, because when you say charge more money, I'm sitting there going, how do you charge more money for your book? But you're talking about making personal appearances, because that's what I tell my speakers too. If you're a speaker, you need a book. If you're an author, you need to become a speaker, because
yeah,
that's where the money may not be in me speaking. Maybe I'll only make a couple grand to speak in front of this organization, but then me marketing the book at that might bring me another $4,000 or $5,000, depending on how you market it, right? Do you teach them all of that type of thing?
yes, absolutely. In fact, in my most recent book, The Speaker Author, that I co-authored with the amazing Lois Kramer, we talk about all of these different strategies. First, about how to write the book that will get you more speeches, and also be able to do that and position that in a way that will allow you to sell more books as well.
That's really cool. And it's vital that we combine the two together so that we understand what we have to offer to the public. It's not just, there are people who just make a living as a speaker, and there are people who just make a living as an author, but those are few and far between. So
Right.
what we talk about, and Cathy, you probably already know this a little bit about me. I run Speaker Talks, which is the alternative to TEDx. And what I do is I take your speakers, if they've taken their speaking classes and their courses and all that stuff, but if they're pretty decent speakers, and I put them on a stage for 15 minutes so they can get that professional sizzle reel done, so that they can now put that on their website or submit it when they're going out for speaking gigs, so people can actually see how they can impact that audience. And when people see how you impact an audience, they're more likely to hire you, right?
That's right. And buy your book.
Yeah. And that's, what's it, Darren Hardy, Darren Hardy is? He was with
Not yet.
Success. He was with Success Magazine for, like, he was the publisher, the director. I don't know,
Mhm.
but he was real prominent for a long while out there. But he was at an event I was at 10 years ago, and it was real interesting because what he said he did was he was a New York Times bestselling author, and he said how he got that was because his first book became a New York Times bestselling author. Now, keep in mind, in those days, 12 or 14 years ago, you had to sell X number of books in X number of days to become a New York Times bestselling author. And what he did was, because he had that wonderful prominent position, he contacted all of his presidents, CEOs, all of his friends, and said, this is what I'm doing, and I'll discount the books, but I want you to buy a book for like every one of your employees. So boom, he sold his 10,000 books or whatever it was. Now, he didn't make much money on them, he said, like $1 a book, but he spent $150,000 to market his own book. Of course, he was wealthy enough to do that. But then he became a best-selling author that way. And then the next one, somebody said, wow, you sold this many books, we're going to hire you and pay you to do the next one. But those people are small people.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you don't find them, right?
Oh, but it's interesting. I think the more you become aware of the opportunities to position your book and your speech with the meeting planner, the more money you can make. And if you don't mind, I'd love to tell you one quick story about
Please.
one of my clients. And I happen to have her books here. She's Sarah Paticha, who's the author of this really great book, West Point Woman. And what she did was she had been doing a little bit of speaking, and she was booked though with a CEO. CEO was really impressed with her book, and he said, Sarah, I'd really like to have a copy of the book for everybody in my company. Could we make this happen? And she said, I think we could.
Well, maybe. Let me think about it.
Yeah,
Right?
no, let me think about that. Okay, yes. And she said, well, she was smart enough to say, would it make sense if we did a special edition that had a special foreword in the book written by you, Mr. CEO, and then your company's name and logo on the back of the book?
Oh,
So
man.
she was able to sell. This was an individual who wanted to buy 1,700 books.
Wow. That's
Now,
nice.
now we're talking. So it's a speaking fee plus, and she discounted the books, but she was able to buy them basically at cost.
Yep.
So she made a nice markup in selling them in bulk, and she walked away with a little change in her pocket there. So,
And that's right. That's real key, is to learn from the experts, Cathy, myself, other people, to learn from the experts the secrets to negotiating the right deal so that you put more money in your pocket. Some people speak for $20,000, $30,000. If you're not one of those speakers, then you have to find other ways to put money in your pocket. So if you're a speaker for $5,000 and you meet someone like that, you could say, and you pitch, and that's what I teach people. You pitch them 7,500. They go, I can't afford 7,500. I can afford 4,800. And you go, I'll tell you what. And we never say, oh, we'll give that up, or we're just going to let that go. I always teach people to say, in lieu of the rest of that fee, if you will supply a book to each of your people, I will discount the book to you. And you still put, let's say, like if there were 1,700 people in your company, certainly, even if you made $5 on each book, that's another $3,500 in your pocket. So you have to look at how you build your speaking business, how you build your author business. So let's go back to the author part, Cathy. It's how do I get started? I mean, I've had a book in me for forever. Isn't that what people tell you? I've had a book in me forever. I want to get it out. What do I do?
10 years or 20 years.
That's right.
So and somebody said, well, do I just sit down and start writing? And I was like, no. I think you first start with a plan, because you can waste a lot of time just writing and you've not written the right book. So it's starting with a strategic plan that is linked to your business plan or your speaking plan, or both. So it's thinking about, who is my targeted reader? What is the purpose for me writing this book in terms of business terms for my business and my career? What do I want this book to do for me and my business? It's also being really clear about, what is this book about? It's not about leadership. It's about some aspect of leadership. It's what your niche is. It's what your specialty, it's what your hook is. So getting really clear on some of those elements before you sit down to write, and then developing the structure and saying, okay, well, when I talk to groups about leadership or whatever it is, Usually I talk about 4 different elements or 5 different elements or whatever it is. Well, maybe those are the 5 chapters of your book. Plus an opening chapter and a closing chapter. There you've got your book. So it's kind of thinking about how you have structured your material already for your speaking work, for your client work, and then doing something similar so it makes sense for it to go together. Because the whole idea is you want your book to complement, to be something they can take home and remember and recall or do a deeper dive. Um, so you want your book to do that for those people who are in your training or in your uh, uh, speaking sessions.
Yeah, so when we're looking at that, I think what's interesting that Cathy said, you have to find your niche. You have to find, if you said, as I teach speakers, what do you want to speak on? What's your topic, right? And they go, oh, everything, whatever, right? And
Oh,
you're like,
no,
nope, can't be that. Okay. When I
no.
teach, it's funny when I teach business networking. So when people go in and they've got those 30 other people that are sitting in their business networking, and I say, I listen to their networking talk, and they say, if any of you know anyone, no, you don't want everybody to know anyone, because then we can't find that person in our head. Anyone is this person. And so you have to bring it down to a niche. You have to bring it down to that particular person that you're looking for today. And that's true when we talk about speeches, when we talk about talks, we talk about a signature talk. Um, and Cathy had it. Cathy, and I'm going to ask you this question. Do you work then with these people? Because you say, well, first you have to do this. Do you give them an outline, or do you just say, I will sit down with you the first week and we'll spend 2 hours together and I'll help you go over this?
Yeah. What I basically do when I start working with a client, and usually my engagements are for 6 months, and not that you can do the book faster than that, but we have a 6 month engagement, and we start with that 2 hour strategy session. I give them pre-work to do, which is to be thinking about what are the things that they've already written, what is their current target uh, audience for their target client for their business. And so they answer some questions. So they come to that first meeting with me, and we make great strides in sort of framing up the book and putting the project plan together.
What do you say to that person who says, I got a friend who's a best-selling author. I want to be one of those?
Well,
Put
let's
her on
talk
the
about
spot
your
on this
business.
one.
Yeah. Let's talk about your business though. What do you want to do? Is it just you love to be an author? Usually, I don't work with people who love writing. Um, I'll tell you just a little secret, Steve, is that I don't really like to write.
Oh, no kidding.
No, here I am, a book coach and an author of 9 books. I don't really like to write. I think it's really hard, painful work. So I think that's why I work really well as a book coach. I'm people who love to write generally write. People who speak or who consult or who coach or do these other things, and that's where their expertise is. They're thinking, oh, writing a book is so hard. And that's those are the folks who need a coach,
Yeah.
and that's where I can really be helpful because I help them frame it up and outline it so that it is manageable and it is something that they can tackle.
I think that's really important that you understand what you were just saying. We run across people all the time who say, I'm a best-selling author. And if you really ask them, they'll usually say, I'm one author in a 20-author book. And those people somehow found a way to decide they were best-selling authors. What Cathy and I do is we help people who are dedicated to finding a profession and a niche in what
Yeah.
they want to do. So we're looking for that professional who wants to help their business grow, who wants to help their passions grow, and who want to make a change in people's lives and not just write a book, right? That's important to understand that when we say, hey, what's the purpose? What are you writing it down for? When Cathy was saying you need to make a list, I work with the Transform Mastermind group on Facebook, and we just put out a planner. And it's
Mm.
$25, but it's a wonderful big planner that works out the whole, and I said the whole year, but it doesn't have dates on it. But that way you can lay everything out. So get yourself a planner. Start with what Cathy's talking about. Put it down. This is what I need to do today. If you don't get it
Mhm.
done today, guess what? It has to be done tomorrow. And it's easy to say, I'll keep putting it off a day and a day. But if you get yourself a coach, Cathy, what's your purpose as a coach?
I have several purposes. One is just to help people think strategically about the book and their business. A lot of people have never had to think about a book or structure a book. So just to even sort of put those ideas together and get them organized. I help them manage their time. So I help them with time management issues and scheduling and calendaring.
And what
I
she's saying there is she kicks your butt so that you stay on track.
You read
I'm,
right through that, Steve. You read right through that. It's funny. One of my clients just said it was a lovely, lovely testimonial that she said Cathy is a perfect combination of nurturing and fierce. Yes, I am a cheerleader, but I'm also like, eh, why are you doing this? It seems like you're sabotaging your efforts. You keep rewriting this chapter. You keep going back and changing your outline. Let's talk about what's really driving that. And is it really a need for making it perfect, or is it important for you to get this thing done? So that's what I do.
and
I
you
ask
know,
those hard questions.
and actually, with 100 and some books under her belt, obviously she does it really well. Cathy, I'm going to pause right here so we can have your commercial. Tell us a little bit about how to get in touch with you, where your website is, all that good stuff.
Oh, that would be great. You can reach me at cathyfyock.com, and it's a little tough to spell, but once you got it, you're there. It's CATHYF as in Frank, YOCK, cathyfyock.com. And I'm the author of, just happen to have one here, On Your Mark, from First Word to First Draft in 6 weeks. So this is my book on writing your book. But if
And
you
that's on Amazon?
that's on Amazon, surprisingly enough. If you are a blogger and you think, gosh, I should have enough content to get all my stuff and put it into a book, then maybe blog to book is what you need. And that is repurposing content to discover the book you've already written. So I love this book because, and it actually was a blog to book. I actually got the idea when I was at Influence, the NSA meeting, and Lois Kramer came up to me and she said, Cathy, I have all these blogs and I felt like I have enough content for a book, but I just can't make myself sit down to write it. And I said, Lois, you have a book. And that gave me the idea for this book, and then we helped write her book.
And that's important to understand too. You won't be successful by yourself. You have to have collaborations. You get ideas from people that you'll meet. Start going to all the networking things. Start going to all of the events. Start going to, if you haven't joined the National Speakers Association, you feel like that's a place to go, certainly go there because they give you great ideas. But get online. You can get into, like we've got a Transform Mastermind, which is all about mastermind groups. You can go to the Engaging Speakers group on Facebook, which is my group, just talks about more opportunities to be engaging speaker. Cathy, do you have something like that online? A Facebook or a face page?
Well, I do have my speaker author mastermind group, which is a group for folks who are either almost published or they are already published, and they want to figure out how to keep their book out there, how to keep it evergreen, how to keep the launch going beyond the launch date, because a launch is not just a date, it's a period of time. One of my authors just celebrated his book's birthday, and I thought that was brilliant. And he did a whole series of posts about it, and it was great. So it's about keeping your book in the front of your marketing efforts and your social media efforts, so that you're really getting your message out.
And what was that page again?
Oh, it's not a page. It's a group. A service that I provide. Yes.
And can anybody get in, or you have to be have to apply?
You have to apply,
okay.
And so that's one of the services that I offer to my clients.
Okay, now I think I jumped in before you finished, but how do they get a hold of you personally?
Oh, well, you can go to my website, or you can just send me an email at cathy@cathyfyock.com.
And your website is cathyfyock.com.
cathyfyock.com.
Okay, so if you want more information on how to be an author, how to get your book out there, how to keep your book out there. And that's one of the big challenges, isn't it? Is a lot of times people think, well, I'm just going to release my book and I'm going to get rich because everybody's going to have me in to talk. Yes. And so what happens on that? Tell us the process on that then.
Yeah, so it's the whole notion of not only the launch period, but beyond the launch. It's incorporating your book into your sales process. For example, one of my authors, Kira Saletto, who is a wonderful speaker, and she, as part of the intake, when she's talking with a meeting planner about booking her engagement, she says, you know, how many people will be there? And does it make sense for everyone to have a copy of my book? That's part of the sales process for her as a speaker. And she trains all of her people. So that's, and it's on the contact form.
Not will you buy a copy, but it's, does it make sense?
Does it make sense? And that's really Lois Kramer's fabulous question. Does it make sense for folks to augment the learning or deepen the learning or take the learning with them beyond just the event of the speech? And I love that. And that's one of the things we talk about in the Speaker Author, which is my other book with on writing, which is the one I've authored with Lois Kramer, the Speaker Author.
The Speaker Author. I think I bought that, matter of fact.
I think you did.
Yeah, I think so.
I think you gave us a good review.
Yep. If you guys haven't got that book, I highly recommend you pick it up, whether you want to be a speaker, whether you want to be an author. If you want to be more successful, that's one of the books you should have in your library. And I don't mean just sitting there. I mean, read it.
Yes.
Doesn't do you any good, right?
It's got lots of tips and ideas. Some of them they seem so basic, but I gave a class not too long ago with some authors. They said, I can't believe I've not been having a handout with my name and contact information, or not having bookmarks that I can leave behind and everybody can take that with them and then can remember me and how to reach me, but also how to buy my book. I mean, tons of little things that you can do as part of your ongoing process.
I'm doing that Speaker Talks thing coming up, and I just did a promo on that. And one of the promos, minute and a half long, is it's the little things that make the difference. Most of us don't understand that I mean, you'll say something, I'll go, you know what, 10 years ago, I used to do that. I wonder why I quit. Those are the things that you not only re-educate yourself with, but sometimes, like you say, they're brand new. I just heard about the bookmark thing the other day that somebody said, instead of business cards, give out bookmarks. And I went, because I'm a nutball on business cards are absolutely valueless. I mean, just valueless. So if I give you a bookmark, you'll put it in your sport coat pocket, or you'll put it in your purse, and then you'll pull it out and you'll put it someplace. And you may not even be in a book. It may be for something else. It may be with your writing tablet or something else.
Exactly.
Yeah. But those are the little tips that she can help you with. So I would highly recommend you getting in touch with Cathy.
Yeah. And then, like, holding your book. This is another thing. Some folks, when they're doing a speech, they forget that this is like valuable real estate right here. So you should be holding your book and maybe even reading from it, reading something fabulous that people will want to take home with them. So little things.
Little things. Lots
of little things.
That's right. That most of us take for granted or never learned. You know, and those are the differences in a hugely successful person and a person who's doing okay. And that really, it really is. There's lots of little things that when you combine them, you know, that snowball effect. Hey, I get these 7 things, and when you combine with these 7 things, suddenly I'm rolling, right? Isn't that it, Cathy?
Absolutely.
So when we come to you, if I'm sitting out there now, somebody's out there sitting out there now, and they just said, hey, I'm going to tune in for the first time to this Speaker Talks thing and see what it's all about. And they say, ooh, I don't know if I have a book in me or not. What makes people decide?
Well, I love to have a conversation with people. There are a lot of people who would love to write, but they're sort of afraid to step into that space. So I love to have conversations with folks who are thinking about a book, or they've thought about it, or they're feeling pushed in that direction. I love to have a complimentary strategy session to talk about your book idea. I always guarantee that I will give you some great value. You'll gain some clarity. You'll gain some insights on next steps. Some of those next steps might be for us to work together, but it might not. It might be that you need to read a book first, or you need to check out NSA, or whatever it might be. So, but yeah, I love to do strategy sessions, and I would be very willing for any of your listeners to give me a shout, send me an email, and say I'd like to schedule a complimentary strategy session.
And the one thing I want to impress upon you is if you reach out to people on Facebook who throw out the ads and say, hey, call us for a complimentary session, you can guarantee that they're going to try and high pressure sell you into buying what they have to offer. When you work with people like Cathy and I, we offer this value session, complimentary session, because we really do care enough that we want to see first if we want to work with you, because we don't work with just everybody. You know, there are some people that,
yeah,
that's right, it's just not a good fit, you know, and so it's important that we get to know you as well as you get to know us, and 30 minutes gives us a little time, and we're not going to pressure you. You know, if there at the end of that you want to pursue it, we'll say, hey, let's talk some more. But please take advantage of her session where she's not going to try and high pressure sales you. She just wants to see if what you have in here can translate into a book. She wants to help you make a transition if you're interested. And maybe at the end you'll go, you know what? I decided that's not what I want to do. Well, great. Then we just solved that problem for both of us.
right.
And it's really important that you understand that going to the wrong people will get you high pressure sales, and going to the right people will get you a nice complimentary session that's going to help you discover a future for yourself, right, Cathy?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when we look at what it's going to take to become an author, what can I expect so how long will it take me? 6 months, you said, maybe, to write my book?
Well, I mean, it's possible. Some of my authors do it in 6 weeks, which is kind of the model for my book, On Your Mark. I say from first word to first draft in 6 weeks. So some of my folks do it. Depends on how busy you are, how many other things you're juggling at the time, but it is absolutely possible. And that's one of the things we work together to put together a work schedule that's right for you.
Okay. And a question then, I've worked with people and a lot of people, and I've heard different areas. How do I pick a title out for my book?
Sometimes the title picks itself out. You don't have to decide too early. When I was working on Your Mark, I wrote this with my nephew, Kevin Williamson, and the working title was How to Write Your Book in 6 Weeks. And we both agreed that that was a great working title, but that was not a catchy title. That didn't have any pizzazz. It didn't have any unique factor to it. So we actually wrote the entire book, and then we had a brainstorming session, and we brainstormed, I don't know, hundreds of titles, and we finally came to this, which is interesting. The subtitle was actually given to me by one of my clients. She was one of my first coaching clients, and she said, well, I think the title of your book should be From First Word to First Draft in 6 weeks. So it wasn't the title, but it was the subtitle.
Yeah. And it's really interesting that people, when you work with different people, they'll ask you different things. But for me, I noticed none of your books have your picture on them.
Well, on the back, there's a little picture of me there.
But see, but I want my picture on the front. I mean, I'm selling Steve Sapato, right?
Well, it depends on what you are selling. And for some of my authors, putting their picture on the cover is absolutely good. Well, I showed you Sarah's book. She has her picture on the cover because she is West Point woman. You know, it makes sense. But it doesn't make sense for everyone to do that. So I think it's thinking about the cover and the title that do make sense for your book, and that's going to help you sell books and book speeches.
That's right. And see, one of the things that I was told about books, and keep in mind, I'm not a book author. Cathy's the expert here, but I was told what you want on the front is the catchy title and stuff that will attract people's eyes, because that's how they buy your book. If it's just my picture, they're going to go, I don't know who that guy is, and I'm not necessarily going to buy anything from him, right? And so it's important that when I talk to people about a business card, right, or putting something like that on, then I'm selling Steve Sapato, right? So I want my business card to have my face on it, my picture on it. I'm a celebrity in that point of view. It's celebrity or commodity in your business card. But on your book, it's a different thing. You're selling something else. You're selling somebody else a dream. You're sending somebody else a hope. You're sending somebody else a message that really conveys differently. So just when you work with somebody, ask the pros. Don't settle for somebody else. I see so many people who are in that best-selling author category who have, matter of fact, I was just offered one a few months ago. It was really interesting, Cathy. A friend that I've known for 30 years in the speaking industry called me up, and I haven't talked to him in 10 years. And he called me up and said, hey, I got a deal for you. I went, what's going on? And we reminisced for a little bit. And then he said, I got Kevin Harrington and Tony Robbins and myself are putting together a book, and we want you to be in it. And I went, what kind of book? And for $6,300, they'd let me write a chapter in their book. And of course, there were going to be 20 other authors. But my picture would have been this big on the back, and the other three guys are on the front, and you're like, really? You think that's going to sell books that makes me a best-selling author? And so I always look at things as, when you do something of quality, you're going to be very proud of it. And that's important, that when you talk to people like Cathy, that you reach out and say, I need help from start to finish, right? You may have your book 3/4 done, and somebody out there has been helping you along, and you're just like, I don't know. Reach out to Cathy. Cathy, how do they get a hold of you?
Cathy at cathyfyock.com.
And it's important that, can you pick somebody up in the middle? So if I've been writing, people I'm talking about, some other people. Yeah, go ahead.
Do it all the time. Yeah, people, a lot of times they get started, but then they get stuck and they just can't get beyond some point. So I love to work with folks who are determined they're going to get unstuck, but they don't know how. So I help them do that, as well as those people who just want to get started, but they just don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, and that's key. That's what I press. I say press play in your life. If you want to be an author, if you want to be a speaker, whatever you want to do, press play. Get out there and do it. You can certainly call us for a consultation to see if that's the direction you want to go. You can ask us all these wonderful questions, and we'll give you the best answers that we know at this time until we get to know you better. The source of the challenge is you. Do you want to move forward? And if you do, then you have to reach out to Cathy. You have to reach out to Steve. And that's the key to your success, is always moving that step forward, right, Cathy?
That's right. Absolutely.
And so, Cathy, I'm going to give it, we're wrapping up here. I'm going to give you another a few seconds. Tell us again your website and your email so we can touch base with you.
Great. You can reach me at my website, cathyfyock.com. And you can send me an email at cathy@cathyfyock.com.
Aren't we special on that? You can reach me at steve@stevesapato.com. Wow, how easy is that? Do you ever have somebody when they say, hey, can we get your email for this or whatever it is? And you go, yeah, it's steve@stevesapato.com. And they look at you like, what is it?
Like, how did you do that?
How did you do that? That's so cool. You think here we are 30 years into this. Everybody should already know that, but they don't. Cathy, any parting words for the people who are thinking about becoming an author or want to finish their book?
I like what Nike says. Just do it. Get started. It's time. It really is time. And wouldn't it be great to come out of what we're going through right now and have a book at the end, be a published author? It's maybe one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. So I just want to encourage you to take that first step.
Can you imagine what that would feel like if 3 months from now you had a book ready to be published, right? That you were so proud of. Wow, think of that. So I'll leave you with that. You've been listening to Speaker Talks and the Speakers Academy and Authors Show, and we hope you have learned a lot here today. And if there's any questions you have, please reach out to us. We'd love to help you out. God bless.